we know that Israel has always put a very high price on the lives of its people. And so it first and foremost wants to recover those hostages.
Yeah, and this
but
really,
at what potential cost does that come for the elongation of the war?
About, I'm not getting excited about anything because you can't negotiate with terrorists. We have no details on this whatsoever. Apparently it's a 6-page agreement. I've heard 50 hostages, I've heard 70. We actually don't have anything that we can rely on. But what it does do is, if Israel were to make such a deal, is lend even more legitimacy to their claims of, if you just gave us back our people, we would down tools. Now, they've been called all sorts of things over the last few weeks, saying, well, that's not true, is it? That's not true. You wouldn't really do that. This proves once and for all, if Israel do strike this deal, that they mean it. They will go to a pause for 5 days just to get 50, 70, however many hostages. Rumour has it all of those hostages would be women and children. So once again, desperate to get those particular hostages back. And yet at the same time, it makes absolutely no sense because we know both these sides have repeatedly sworn to wipe each other off the face of the planet. So it is legitimately a race to annihilation. That's what this war is.
And that's my issue. Where does it actually end? Because so you get the hostages back, and then after that, 5 days later, the war continues on as it was.
But you get your hostages back.
Sure,
so at least
right.
Israel will have
They're
something
trying
to
to
show
impress
for
the
it.
Western world, okay? They're trying to impress Western leaders, but it will only impress reasonable people. The people who are on the streets protesting are hard lefties. They're not going to change their minds. They've decided that despite the fact that Israel has got nothing to do with Gaza and left it in 2005, it's a colonial power. All of these stupid things, their heads are making no sense whatsoever. Now, if they're not making any sense, they won't be impressed by what Israel does, whatever it does.
So you'll never flip those people. You'll never flip those people. What you want to do is isolate them more and more and make sure that when they are increasingly being pushed into a corner where they are aligning themselves with Hamas and aligning themselves with more and more ridiculous and unbelievable and unrealistic assertions, like, for example, that there are no military installations under hospitals or tunnels under hospitals, or that Hamas never killed or beheaded or burnt babies. They are backing themselves into a corner at the rate of knots. When the focus goes from that to Israel also doing some pretty heavy stuff, then Israel starts to lose its moral high ground, not among the crazies who will always back Palestine no matter what, but among the people in the middle. And it's always the middle that wins the day. So Israel knows that if it can be seen to be acting in good faith and say, okay, we'll stop bombing you for a second and you can return the women and children. And again, Hamas could have taken the men and it wouldn't even have been as severe as it was with what they did. It's the extremity of what they did, not just the nature of it or that they did it that is the problem. So if Israel does that, if they get those back, right, then it looks like Israel has actually acted in good faith, and so Israel can say, look, we are again the good guys, we deserve the US's backing and the UN is being too hard on us, and then they can resume their campaign against Hamas, having, after this pause, which is not a ceasefire, because a ceasefire implies that North Korea and South Korea are in a ceasefire. That's what a ceasefire looks like. That's still ongoing. That would mean that you then abandon your claim.
But if you try to persuade
Israel still must wipe
Hamas out. If you try to persuade the middle ground, there's no point in trying to make the UN think better of you because they're not the middle ground.
Trust me, Israel is not trying to make the UN
You make the UN look more unreasonable to most people, and that is what is all about the eye of the reasonable person.
I don't think this is a PR stunt. Like, why are you looking at it through that lens? Israel just wants their hostages back.
They want as many of their hostages back as they want.
Then they're happy to do it.
That's right, but it's also not a coincidence that this deal, should it exist, was brokered by America.
But the fact that it's brokered by the US is an absolute joke. They're funding both sides of the war, and we all know it. They've even admitted. Just last week, they unlocked $10 billion to Iran. Weeks before the first conflict blow out, they unlocked $6 billion. They know exactly what they're doing. Matt Miller,
that's a little bit different to the funding and the support they're giving to Israel.
No, but they have been asked, you know what Iran is going to spend this money on, given what's currently going on in the world, can't have escaped your notice. And Matt Miller, spokesperson for the Biden administration, has said, yeah, we know Iraq's always been a disruptor, you know, that's what Iran does. They know exactly what they are doing. This is an unhinged, like mentally psychotic time to be unleashing any funds to Iran, and they're doing it
I think the person
anyway.
who brokered that deal is now mysteriously on unpaid, unseen, extended leave from the State Department.
Job.
But yes,
we all know there's way more people involved.
But to say the US's support for Iran is the same as its support for Israel is another form of completely false moral equivalency.
Well, I did not say that. I did not say that. I simply said I said they are funding both sides of the war, and they've been pulled up on it and have admitted it outright. We all know what Iran stands for. So why are you giving them $10 billion just last week?
But that's like saying if I give $100 to, you know, St Vincent de Paul or the Salvos, and they go and do good works, and I see a homeless person and say, "Oh, I feel sorry for you, mate. Here you go. I'll give you $100," and then he runs off and spends it on crack. That I'm funding both sides.
No, but you know what you're doing. But you know what you're doing when you're giving them.
The Iranian president literally laughed when asked, "Are you going to spend this on humanitarian aid as you've promised to?"
That's right.
He laughed and said verbatim, "We will spend it however we want to."
The US has Israel's back 100%, and they've already, I believe, bombed Iranian installations in Syria.
The Dems there are as bad as Labour here. They talk out of both sides of their mouth, but we all know where their real loyalties lie, Joe.
100%.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I agree Biden has done a better job than most world leaders on this issue.
Yeah.
He has actually stood up and talked about it.